Why We See Movies podcast. I'm your host, Ron Hope. Joining me, as always, we've got Paul.
Hey.
And Darren.
Hello.
Welcome to our post-Oscar podcast, where we're going to talk about some of the big winners and losers of the night, and whatever else piques our interest. So let's begin. Hey, boys.
Hey, Ron.
Hey.
How are ya?
Aces, you.
So what'd you think of the show last night?
Kind of an unspectacular evening.
It was a long one.
Actually, I really enjoyed it. Thought it had a good flow. There was a couple jokes that Jimmy Kimmel went to the well a few too many times on, like last year's gaffe. But other than that, I found it really entertaining.
Wow.
I'm glad you did.
Cool. Why don't we start with the host of the night, Jimmy Kimmel's second gig. I really enjoyed his hosting last year. I thought it was almost kind of a perfect Oscar hosting duties. This one, I don't know if the jokes weren't there or the night just didn't have the same energy, but it was more of a lackluster.
I agree. I think he was funny, but last year he was really funny. And maybe it was just the whole atmosphere in Hollywood this year, and just people weren't in a big celebratory mood. There was a lot of fingers to wag. I don't know, Jimmy Kimmel, I guess he tried, but aside from maybe the frequent Christopher Plummer jokes, I didn't find him to be hilarious.
I thought he was entertaining enough. I would agree. I didn't think he was necessarily hilarious, but I think you're spot on with the observation about the tone, because it opened with really no spectacle. Like, there was no big opening musical number. Was it Letterman when he hosted that he'd have the montage of the best pictures and kind of piece himself into them and whatnot?
Love that, yeah.
Yeah, I used to really look forward to that, and it was almost like a really cold opening, like just kind of, hi, I'm Jimmy Kimmel.
Yeah, make a note that it was the lowest rated Oscar telecast in history.
It's been dropping in the ratings every year over the last, 10 or 15 years.
Right, I won't be surprised if next year is the lowest.
Yeah, since you mentioned, the lackluster opening, Paul, I saw today on the internet that Lonely Island had been contracted to write a song for the Oscars that they were told then, after they submitted it, was not really something the Oscars could work with. You can hear it on the internet. I was at work.
Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't really have a chance to check it out and listen to it, so I don't know what it's like, but there
they
you go.
Went over the line a few times.
Possibly, yeah. It didn't, going off the headline, I didn't listen to the song or read the article, but
you'd expect that.
It wasn't the Academy's cup of tea anyways,
right.
Whatever.
It seems like an odd marriage that they'd even approach Lonely Island about that. I mean, they're not on a boat, motherfucker.
They did start off with, what, a 1930s kind of style radio broadcast?
Yeah,
that's true.
That's an interesting way to hook into the younger youth market.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, you're 90 years old. I see what you guys are referencing there by doing that. But I don't know. I guess getting James Franco and Anne Hathaway to host that one year didn't really bring in the young numbers. So
yeah, I don't think James Franco will be asked back no matter what.
No.
Yeah, as far as the monologue went, no real zingers, I thought. You're right about the Christopher Plummer jokes. The first one was pretty funny about the Alexander Hamilton.
Yeah. They were funny, but I think he just didn't want to be controversial and over the top this year and hurt anyone's feelings given the tone in the town.
Yeah, everybody's walking on
eggshells.
Right. And I agree. It probably made for a less energized night.
Yeah.
If you want to say it that way. But they needed, maybe it's their kind of self-scolding. Is that it?
Yeah.
We're not allowed to have that much fun tonight.
We shouldn't have fun this year.
We've been bad. Yeah.
But man, the set design was gorgeous. That's one thing that really stuck out to me, is how gorgeous the backdrop for it all was. I thought it was spectacular, I thought.
They put a lot of money into it.
Yeah, that they did.
Didn't someone make a joke about each one of
the
those?
crystals represents
something. Okay, moving on from Kimmel, shall we just get into some of the big awards? Shape of Water was the big winner of the night with 4 awards: Best Picture, Best Director, Best Production Design, and Best Original Score. The next big winner was Dunkirk, actually, with 3 awards: Sound Mixing, Sound Editing, and Editing. The editing one I have no problem with. The whole movie is kind of based on its editing. For me, it was far too noisy a movie to have won the Sound Mixing awards. I actually thought it was kind of terribly mixed, at least in the theater it was. Okay. I don't know if it was just my theater experience. Like I think I might have mentioned on the podcast. Felt like you go to someone's house and they're turning their stereo up louder than it should be for it can hold it. And
although sometimes that's the movie theater's fault itself. What was it? The Witch I talked about, where I felt they had the volume levels not to what I think the sound mixer on that film would have liked.
Since seeing Dunkirk at home, I had no problem with that. So.
Yeah, because I only watched it on home video and I thought the sound mix was quite good.
Actually, I enjoyed the whole film a lot more the second time very rich film.
It is a very good film.
It's one I want to revisit because out of the three of us that reviewed it, I liked it the most, but there was a lot of concepts, especially the observation of time, that I really wanted to revisit and kind of rectify in my head. And we even said at the time that it was a movie that would probably come across a little bit better on a rewatch. But as far as the editing, anybody that listens to the podcast knows that Baby Driver was one of my favorite movies of the year. And that movie is all editing. It's sound editing with the songs and just the quick cuts of action.
I would have been okay with either one of those two winning.
Yeah, for sure. But
Yeah.
I was a bigger fan of Baby Driver, but I have no problem with Dunkirk winning.
You know, the problem with Baby Driver is that he's making it look too easy.
Yeah.
It looks effortless. It's too much fun to be that good.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Fair enough.
Yeah. After Dunkirk, a bunch of films shared 2 awards each. That would be Coco, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, The Darkest Hour, and Blade Runner 2049 picked up 2 awards.
Yes.
Which is very nice. Nobody might have seen it, but me and you did, Paul, and we loved it.
Yeah, we did.
Have you caught up with that yet, Darren?
No, I still haven't. Yeah, I can't wait.
I know Darren, you and I were fairly similar in our opinion of the original Blade Runner.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling that you would probably appreciate this one a little bit more.
I'm not worried that it'll have the same tone and feeling that the first one does. It's, a completely different director, and I've enjoyed every Denis Villeneuve movie I've seen so far, whereas Ridley Scott can, for me, be a hit-and-miss director for sure.
I'm positive after you see 2049, you're going to want to go back to the old one and revisit it, and hopefully rethink your opinion.
Maybe one day. Maybe I need to watch one of the different cuts of it. I don't know.
Yeah, okay. Out of the other ones, any ones you want to talk about? Coco, I think, was pretty much a lock for Best Animated Feature. The breadwinner would have been nice, Paul, but
that would have been a dark horse. I would have been surprised. For me, it was kind of 1A and 1B. I expected Coco because it's a little more family friendly, and as we discussed, Ron, it's gorgeous and it's a fantastic movie.
I've seen it again, and even the quibbles that I had on the podcast about it, with maybe the songs weren't rich enough or something, I completely take that back. I was wrong. The songs work perfectly. There is nothing wrong with the movie. The only thing I didn't mention that I think we should have is what an emotional punch it has.
Oh, for
that
sure.
movie. If you really connect with that kind of family values and that kind of tradition and all that.
Just the sheer importance of family and legacy of family. And yeah, I'm not surprised it's cleaned up. It's a fantastic movie, and it's a classic that I think will live on.
The clips they showed from Loving Vincent looked really interesting too.
Yes.
That does too. That looks like the artistic choice of the year. And the breadwinner, of course. So the Academy did, I was going to say they did pretty good, but they did nominate that Boss Baby.
You don't even...
And Ferdinand. And that's the thing where...
Why bother not having that many nominations if the movies aren't up to that same level?
Good
I've
point.
now seen, thanks to having a 2.5-year-old, The Boss Baby quite a bit, and it's not terrible. I will give it that. It's not terrible, but it's not good.
Would you recommend it to anyone 4 and up?
Maybe to as high as the age of 6.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
I look at that and I kind of think of, like, if you look at the nominations last year, and I liked the nominations better from last year because it seemed to push the envelope a little bit more with The Red Turtle, My Life as a Zucchini, Moana, and Zootopia, but they still had Trolls in there. And then this year, kind of the more generics, you had Ferdinand and The Boss Baby. So I don't know whether they do that to get a younger audience a little more interested because a movie they've seen is nominated. I don't know if that's their idea or it's just their general mentality towards animation is that it's for kids. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and maybe it's that branch of the Academy just wants to nominate. I mean, those films might have great animation in them, even if the films themselves aren't great. And maybe that's what they're recognizing as the animation. I mean, Finding Dory, that was kind of an awful film, but the animation on that octopus character is amazing.
Yeah.
And so you can see that being recognized, if that's what they're doing.
And yeah, Loving Vincent looks great, and I believe it's, if it's not the first, one of the first fully painted animation movies, full-length animation movies. So obviously it's done in the art style of Vincent van Gogh.
Like frame by frame painted?
As far as I understand, yeah.
It looked like it might have been computer assisted from the clips I saw, but that's just what I assumed because I thought, wow, I wouldn't think anyone would take the time to hand paint frame by frame. If that's what they did, that's amazing.
I haven't done a lot of research. That's just what I had heard, so that could be wrong. Don't hold my feet to the fire on that one. But either way, it looks great.
Yeah, I would trust you on that.
The other award that Coco won for the night was for Best Song, Remember Me. That's the only song I actually tuned into the whole song during the broadcast. Probably said this on last year's show as well. But for me, an original song has to be a major component of the film. It's not something that can be just lifted on the end credits like they used to. Like, remember that Bryan Adams song for the Robin Hood movie and stuff? You know, what does that have to do with the movie? It's interchangeable. This one isn't. It's a big part of the movie and it deserved to win.
And it reinforces the central theme of the movie, for sure. And you hear a couple different versions of it throughout the movie. And actually listening to just the lyrics in a different performance, I could actually appreciate that song a little bit more.
Okay, moving on to some of the bigger categories. Darkest Hour picked up 2 awards, Best Makeup and Best Actor for Gary Oldman.
Yeah, seems like kind of no surprise for either win, although Shape of Water, I guess, could have almost easily have won.
I would
for
say
Best
this
Makeup.
was the big lock for the night, I would say.
For the acting award?
Yeah, for Gary Oldman.
Definitely, yeah.
I've seen the performance, and it's really good. Churchill, such a character to play, right? He's someone you can really get lost in all that makeup, and the makeup is outstanding. There's moments in it where you're looking for Gary Oldman under all that, and you can't see him.
It looks like, from the clips I've seen, he's able to emote in a way that all that latex sometimes doesn't allow an actor to do.
Right, exactly.
And he looks just, wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
And like I was saying, like to play Churchill, it's almost begs to overperform. And that
make him a caricature more than a character.
And that's what I was kind of worried about. I've seen that done before, but it's a killer performance. I don't know if it's my favorite lead performance of the year, but I have no problem with the win, that's for sure.
And it's probably, we talked about when we reviewed the Post, there's been a lot of McNamara's in the movies. There's been a lot of Churchills as well. Yeah. This looks like it's probably the best Churchill that's ever been done.
And that's one thing that I took just in general from the Oscars is a lot of the winners, even though I may not have seen their performances, I'm a fan of them as actors, so I was happy to see them win. And yeah, I haven't seen Gary Oldman in this, but I'm such a fan of his. So have you guys, this is a little off topic, but have you guys seen the footage that his wife took of Gary Oldman in the Churchill getup actually dancing to James Brown behind the scenes?
I have not.
It's pretty incredible, actually.
That sounds funny. And for the makeup alone, I always think the performance is something, but this guy also had to sit for probably 6-7 hours for makeup every day. Probably got to the set at 2 a.m. to get made up by 8 to perform, and then afterwards another 2 hours every day to get the makeup off. Sometimes I think you should get awards just for that.
Yeah, I mean, to deliver the performance he has under those circumstances is pretty commendable.
Yeah, I want to see what you guys think of that movie. It's pretty good.
Yeah, I really look forward to it.
We saw the trailers before Dunkirk, and it looked really interesting, and that was a very appropriate trailer to get before Dunkirk, obviously. But
yeah, his performance is the best thing in the movie. The director, Joe Wright, I have a problem with his style sometimes in a lot of his movies, like Atonement, and we could go on for a little bit about how I think about him. Yeah.
So is it kind of on the level of, I think it was last year, the year before, that Natalie Portman delivered the performance of Jackie Onassis, and you were saying that's the reason to see the movie and not really much else?
The movie's better than that movie in general. Yeah, I'd recommend the movie as a whole, but it's not best picture material for me. And then the other one was 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri picked up 2 big awards, of course, for Best Actress, Frances McDormand, and Best Supporting Actor, Sam Rockwell. I've seen this movie too. I don't know if we should get into this quite yet. Why not?
I just got my Blu-ray copy in the mail, so I'll watch it soon. I just figured I would buy it, and...
Let's just say I wasn't a fan of the film.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I have problems with it, and I can't really discuss it until you guys have seen it, but I would have been happy if it got completely shut out.
Wow.
Wow. Even for performances.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because not only did I have problems, I don't have problems with, of course, the actors, but the performances themselves in the film that they're in, it's hard to describe it. It almost feels like, talk about caricatures of people. There seems to be no real sense of reality to the movie. It almost seems to be playing on a satirical level, and it doesn't know how to deal with it. It's hard to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, what you've said right there is how I would describe Martin McDonagh's movie so far, except they have known how to deal with it.
For sure. Oh,
yeah.
No, In Bruges is terrific.
Yeah. So it's interesting what you say on it. We'll
it's just a different movie than what I thought it was going to be. Maybe on a second viewing, I could appreciate it more, but I think it was a hit and a miss.
Okay, we'll have to bring it up as a rant and rave when 2 or 3 of us have seen it and
for sure
discuss it.
That sounds good.
Yeah, that's surprising, simply not necessarily because of the director, but the actors involved. But I guess that speaks to things that we've said on this podcast many times, is that you can have a great cast, but if you don't know how to use them, then...
Yeah, I've been dying to see this movie since I first saw the trailer, and so hopefully it lives up to my expectations. But Ron, now you've just dampened my enthusiasm.
Sorry. Well, I will say all the snippets of the movie that I saw through the Oscars have really whet my appetite to see it even more, because I didn't really know a lot about it going into it. But I will say, generally, I kind of thought maybe at some points during the Oscars, maybe they were showing too much of some of these movies, because they're trying not to use the same clips over and over, movies that keep winning. There was a certain shot of Shape of Water that I'm not going to say what it was, but I
felt the same way.
I was like, too. I don't think I really wanted to see that.
I put my hand in front of the screen for almost every time they were showing images from Shape of Water, because I don't want to be spoiled yet.
Yeah.
To all our listeners out there, we have still not caught up with that, with the Best Picture of the Year, and we promise to review it properly.
As soon as it's available, we will review it.
Yeah, back to Three Billboards and the performances. I'm such a fan of both of them. Frances McDormand is one of our great actresses. So I hope you guys like it and that you think that she's worthy of it. Same with Sam Rockwell. The problem with Best Supporting Actor for me is I just saw The Florida Project, and Willem Dafoe is so good in that. And he really was kind of the guy I was rooting for. I think out of all the awards last night, he was the one I was rooting for the most.
That movie looks great, and I desperately want to see it. I've heard nothing but great things about it. Not the happiest of subject matters in a movie, but that's okay sometimes.
Trust me, it should have been nominated for Best Picture.
I was actually a little surprised it wasn't.
Me too. We'll be talking about the Florida Project when we get to my top 10 of last year. Okay, that was it for all the movies that won more than one. What else? Lady Bird was nominated for 5 awards and got shut out. I just saw that movie recently, and it was okay. I thought it was all right. I don't think it was Academy worthy at all.
Oh, wow.
I look forward to it, but we'll see.
Keep your expectations low. Is there any other awards that you guys wanted to talk about last night?
Just in that, for me, the surprise of the evening was, in an evening that didn't really have a lot of surprises. Not only is James Ivory still alive, but he's still writing movies with, about societal values and social awareness and about such young characters and subject matter. I honestly didn't know he was involved in that film, so...
I was thrilled that he won. That was another one I was cheering for. And great to see him get a standing ovation.
Deserved it.
For anyone out there who doesn't know who James Ivory is, right. This guy has been making movies since the early 70s. Mostly he's familiar with his famous partners, Ismail Merchant and his screenwriter, Ruth Pryor Jabala. And together, the famous Merchant Ivory team made movies like Howard's End, A Room with a View, The Remains of the Day, Surviving Picasso. Tons before that. The Europeans, The Bostonians, Infana. Tons. He is a real giant.
For sure.
In film. And this was his first Academy Award at 89 or 90? For
mid to late 80s or something,
Right.
It's staggering he hasn't won any award yet, even for writing or
Howard's End is one of the great films of the 90s.
Howard's End is wonderful.
I love it. And I remember a few years ago when an older guy wrote a movie, The King's Speech. Remember when he picked up his Oscar? That seemed more in line. For an 89-year-old guy to be writing a movie like this about a gay romantic relationship between a 16-year-old and about a 24-year-old. I haven't seen Call Me By Your Name yet. I think that's the general premise. That's imagine a screenwriter that old writing that kind of fresh material.
He deserved it probably for that film and for his career. I'm sure that's why he got it, was for his staggering career. But it was great to see.
Awesome. And not too often that both screenwriters get standing ovations. For Best Original Screenplay, Jordan Peele. That out.
I was actually going to say, on the flip side, you get the guy who put in such a legacy that, finally wins an award at 89. And then you get the other guy that first time out just wins an Oscar like it's nothing.
Yeah. And I don't think Get Out was going to win Best Picture, Best Director. So I think the Academy said we have to, not that they collectively get together and say this, but that's how the Oscars work. Is they
there
say,
was a moment throughout the night where I was kind of thinking if there is going to be an upset and a surprise at Best Picture, I think Get Out was the one.
Yeah. If there would be an upset, I'd say you're probably right. That would be the one. But it seems like they thought, we got to recognize this film. And it really is a great writing achievement more than anything, I'd say, as a film. So it's a deserved win for Jordan Peele. And he deserved the standing ovation too. It's his debut feature.
Yeah. In Academy history, and I'm pretty sure on this, I was trying to find this information out. It's pretty tough. But I think there's only been 2 other people who were nominated for writing and directing their debut film. And that was Orson Welles for Citizen Kane and John Singleton for Boys in the Hood.
Is that what the other one was? I wasn't sure what the third one was. Okay.
So that's pretty nice company.
Yeah.
John Singleton didn't win.
No.
Orson Welles and Jordan Peele did.
Yeah.
And it's great to see how much it actually means to some of these people. Like Jordan Peele is weeping as he's walking off the stage. So you can tell that it has some impact. Like people always question, well, how much do the Oscars mean these days and their bought awards or whatever? They still carry some weight to the people that are in these categories and have the potential to win them.
I feel sorry for Jordan Peele having to follow this one up.
I
want to
Get Out too.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's hope he doesn't have the sophomore jinx, but good luck to him on the next one.
Yeah, as much as I like Orson Welles' subsequent films, he never topped Citizen Kane, so
that's true.
We'll see how he's...
It's all downhill from there.
Yeah. Good luck, Jordan.
Yeah, those both of those two writing awards were big moments for me in the night, and I was thrilled at both of them.
Yeah, I was actually really happy to see Allison Janney get an award because
we haven't got to Best Supporting Actress yet out of all the main four.
Sorry if I jumped,
but go ahead, that's great.
I've just been such a huge fan of hers ever since West Wing. That was the first thing I had seen her in. She's phenomenal, and I appreciate her wit. Even in her acceptance speech, you can tell her character and just her wry sense of humor. I mean, she gets up there and just says, I did it all on my own, right? And obviously she's not serious, but yeah, I've loved her. Not that I see everything she's involved in, but I just really appreciate her, and I was very happy to see her get the...
She is a major talent. I'm a fan of hers as well, and yeah, a deserved one for her.
Going back to one of her first performances, she's in a movie called Big Night, which I'm a huge fan of. We really should do our Best in the 90s show sometime and talk about some of these, but she's great in that. She has one of the first things I saw her in was a movie called Primary Colors with John Travolta.
Right.
She's in it for like a minute, and she's hilarious in like 3 scenes. She just has that ability to pop off the screen. And another thing that you were saying, Paul, is she always plays smart. I don't think she could play an idiot. I can't wait to see her in this Tanya movie because the mother looks like a very interesting character.
Yeah.
You can tell the crowd reaction that she's got a lot of fans in there, and she's beloved in the industry, I think. Yeah, that was great. So that was all 4 of the major awards. So let's move on to the original score category. And
it's music to our ears.
Big winner of the night was For Shape of Water, Alexandra Desplat. Desplat.
Yeah.
Are you a fan of that score? Have you listened to it yet?
I've only listened to samples, given how much I like Desplat as a composer and how interested I am in the film. I don't want to experience the score before I've seen it in the context it was written for. So I want to watch the film first with it. But I'm a big fan of his. Paul, you recently reviewed Grand Budapest Hotel on the show, and that had a much-deserved Best Original Score win for him, his first. I love him as a composer. He's great. Big fan of his ever since I first saw Girl with a Pearl Earring, which was his kind of breakout score for North American audiences. He was scoring French films for years and years before that. But he's such a genial, self-effacing guy. When he gets up there, he's grateful to have won. He seems like a nice guy. Our listeners might get tired of me and Ron harping on Hans Zimmer, but anytime I see Hans Zimmer in promotional material or an interview, he comes across as such an arrogant, full of himself, smug prick. And I'm so glad that even though Hollywood wants him to score every movie they make, they don't award him for it, because those eardrum raping scores of his are just not my cup of tea.
And one thing we should mention to our listeners, if they don't know how the Academy system works, I don't even know if we went into this really last year's show, but when it comes down to the nominations, the entire branch will focus on the nominations.
Like the editors nominate editors, cinematographers nominate for their category, actors nominate actors.
Right.
Everyone can vote for the winner in every category, and everyone can nominate for Best Picture.
Right, but it's only the people in their individual categories
so composers nominate composers, and everyone can vote for every category.
Right.
That's interesting. I had no idea it worked like that.
Yeah, that shows you maybe how popular he is within his own branch.
Yeah, I mean...
Has he ever won an Oscar?
He gets enough nominations. He won, I'm going to say for The Lion King, but he has one Oscar under his belt.
Not long ago.
Yeah. You know what? I remember in 94 when The Lion King came out, I was just graduating from high school and starting university. And I remember I wasn't that familiar with his work at that point. Maybe Driving Miss Daisy and The Lion King, a few other films I had seen of his. There was an interview with him in the newspaper, and he was talking about how he's like, I hear music in my head. You know, I'm always hearing music in my head. Everywhere I go, I hear music in my head. I don't think I'm a genius, but I'm always hearing music in your head. Like, you know what? You're a composer. I'm pretty sure every composer hears music in their head all day long. You're not unique in that. Hands.
Hand job.
Yeah.
Well, and the funny thing is you guys mentioned the Lion King soundtrack, and it's not anything of the score that jumps to mind. It's always the songs, for me at least.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Zimmer scores. If I had to be honest with our listeners and pick some Hans Zimmer scores I do like, The Lion King is one of them, but it's not a great score. It's pretty good, but that's
funny. Out of all the stuff that you just mentioned, Driving Miss Daisy might be the only one of his scores I can actually hum just off the top of my head.
And it's one of his few that actually has like lyrical melodies to it.
Right.
and a nice orchestration. Yeah, it's a really wonderful score. That is one of his top 10 scores for sure, in my opinion.
And I haven't liked him since.
Compared to the... I always say, well, you talked about his music when you guys reviewed Dunkirk. I hadn't seen the film yet, so
if you want to call that music.
I wasn't a part of that. Yeah, I've since watched Dunkirk, and it's like he plugs 5 or 6 notes into his computer, hits repeat, and then goes out for a cheeseburger.
Totally.
He comes back and, okay, I've got my hour's worth of music here. My work is done. I've made my $1 million, and here's my score. Christopher Nolan, how do you like it? Oh, I love it, Hans, because it is only 2 notes. That's exactly what I want. I imagine Christopher Nolan is pretty pretentious himself.
I don't know. It definitely doesn't take away from his direction, that's for sure.
No, and I would have to, once again, to be honest, there were a couple cues in his score in Dunkirk that I thought were effective enough, but not great. And there's so much glaringly terrible cues in that score that I just can't appreciate Hans Zimmer. And yet he's so popular that I guess it comes down to opinion, but...
Yeah, I think we're stuck with him.
We are.
Okay. He's a genius. Just ask him.
At least we still have John Williams and Ennio Morricone and Desplat and so many others. Morricone is scoring Tarantino's Charles Manson pick.
Is that right?
Yeah, so we got another probably great Morricone score coming up. And he's like 90.
You would think of all the movies that he would be using source.
I have no doubt it'll be...
I would say it's probably going to be a limited score.
It's Tarantino, so I'm sure we'll have plenty of 60s music. Mm-hmm. Or, no, it's Tarantino, so we'll have plenty of 70s music in that movie, even though it hasn't been written yet at the time the movie takes place. But yeah, there will be a Morricone score to it.
And if you haven't heard, Brad Pitt and DiCaprio are both signed on to star in it.
So nice. Quite the cast.
We'll talk about that later. Speaking of the original scores, on an earlier podcast, we were talking about John Williams and Edith Head going head to head.
I thought I was going to say, because I thought you were wrong about Edith Head. But
well, she still has more wins.
Right.
8 wins to his 5.
Right.
But for the nominations, it's not even close anymore.
No.
And it's hard to believe because I think the first time I checked this out, she was leading with 35 nominations. He's blown past her with 51.
The one that he's always been trying to catch up with is Walt Disney. Mm-hmm. I think Walt Disney.
I got that too. He's still the all-time champ with 59 nominations and 22 wins.
He'll have to get a few double nominations over the next few years to catch up to Walt.
But if he does that, at least he'll know he's undeniably deserved. Yeah. While Walt Disney was at a time when he was taking the credit for his animator's work, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
It's not like Walt Disney was animating. If he was winning 6 awards in one night for 6 different shorts, it's not like he was doing
I don't know if he animated past those silent Alice shorts, to be honest.
Exactly, right.
Yeah, it's funny because I think it was the day of the Oscars. I'm going to say it was the LA Times, but I'm not sure. They had an article whose headline was, "What does a 45-time loser look like?" And they were talking about John Williams, who, of course, has now 46-time loser. And then they say, well, by the way, this is what he's won for. And then they list through, many of the films he's been nominated for. And it's just going over what a staggering career he's had. And I think they refer to him as a rock star in that article. He's one of the industry's most beloved figures right now. And he's just turned 86. He's said Star Wars Episode 9 would be his last Star Wars score. He would retire from the Star Wars franchise after that. I think people just think it's John Williams. We don't need to give him another award. But when you look back at it, it's been 25 years since he's won an Oscar. Schindler's List was his last win. So he's a much lauded individual. And since then, he's won things like the Kennedy Center honors and just the Presidential Medal for the Arts or whatever it's called.
AFI?
Yeah, AFI. So, he's so lauded that I don't know what I'll have to do to win another Oscar. Just maybe he never will. But
you know who I think is tarnished with the same thing is Tom Hanks. I think people think Tom Hanks has won so many Oscars, don't give Tom Hanks another Oscar. He hasn't won since Forrest Gump.
Right, exactly.
Right? Philadelphia and Forrest Gump were back to back. Mm-hmm. So he hasn't won in 24 years either. And think of all the performances he's put in since then.
A lot of people, have that, stigma about him. Spielberg is another one, I think. I remember I think it was in 97 when they were talking about the awards, and Siskel and Ebert were very big on In the Company of Men, which is a very good film. And they were talking about the nominees, and they said, don't just give it to Spielberg for Amistad because it's Spielberg. And I was like, whoa, wait a second. Spielberg has one Oscar to his name for Best Director at that point. He's since won for Saving Private Ryan as well. But people just feel that way about certain individuals, whereas, he's
got a closet full of Oscars.
Yeah, they don't really as much as you think they do.
And it might even be perception, too. You're right. Like, people might assume that they won a ton, but it also might be they're doing what's expected. It's like John Williams delivered an amazing score. Well, yeah, that's kind of what we expected, right? Where it could be somebody else delivers a performance or produces a piece of music that they didn't expect so that gets on their radar a little bit more.
Mhm.
Maybe. I mean, does it justify it? No, but
That
could be
is
the
a good
one
way of
I think.
looking at it, for sure.
Then again, with Meryl Streep, she's up to what, I think 21 nominations, and she just won, I think, for her 19th one for the Iron Lady, and before that, she hadn't won since Sophie's Choice in 83. So there are these big gaps. So who knows? Tom Hanks might have an Oscar next year.
Yeah, we'll see. Yeah,
Now that Daniel Day-Lewis is out of the running.
Well, and even Frances McDormand had a large gap between her wins too. Like, sure, she's won 2, but her last one was Fargo. So, that's a pretty substantial gap between wins, and she's consistently great.
And one win I was very pleased about, another standing ovation, so at least the crowd knows that these guys are worthy, was Roger Deakins finally winning for Best Cinematography. 14 nominations, A Bridesmaid.
Yeah.
And his first win for Blade Runner 2049. We were talking about how well-deserved this guy is. And for those of you guys out there who don't know what this guy shot, let me just name a few of his movies, going all the way back to like Sid and Nancy, Mountains of the Moon, which I like too.
And I will
Beautiful
be reviewing that in a future rant and or rave.
Barton Fink, The Shawshank Redemption, Fargo, Kundun, A Beautiful Mind, No Country for Old Men, The Assassination of Jesse James, Doubt, Skyfall, A Serious Man, Sicario. These are just a few.
Wow. He's an incredible cameraman, for sure.
Unreal.
He's up there with, for me, I love Janusz Kaminski, I love Robert Richardson, and Roger Deakins. It's just stunning that this is his first
He'll go
win.
up there with Conrad Hall. And
James Wong Howe and the greats, for sure. Yeah,
without a doubt. So, good for him.
Yeah, he deserved that standing ovation for sure.
And class act all the way, too.
Oh, yeah.
Those English guys just know how to give better speeches. So, and then talking about the big winner of the night, Best Director and Best Picture, Shape of Water. Unfortunately, we're not in much of a position to comment on the film yet.
No.
I was so happy Guillermo won, though, for directing, though. Another standing ovation, though. You can tell the people who are really loved in the industry and I think are considered real filmmakers. And you see Del Toro's work, and whether Hellboy is your thing or not, there's a real artist behind there. And I love his stuff. And every time he talks about movies, he's so passionate and about the history of film, and these are the guys who
he knows his stuff, and he pays homage to it on a movie by movie basis when he makes it. You can tell he's got his true artistic vision, and he knows the greats of the past that he's paying tribute to with his films, and it really makes you appreciate his work.
He also definitely knows how to spend his money. I don't know if you guys have heard what he's done with one of his houses, but he's got it designed and built like one of those older Gothic style mansions. He has like a secret bookcase that moves over.
I've heard that, yeah.
Really? And like a hidden staircase down to like a cavernous space. Yeah, where all of his goodies are. That's exactly what I would do if
any director would do that, it's him, for sure. Yeah.
He's got such a lush imagination that's not surprising that would bleed into his everyday life, because, he's got such a distinct artistic vision with everything he does. But you're right, Ron. Love or hate his movies, you're watching a Guillermo del Toro movie. Like, as much as I wasn't a fan of Crimson Peak, I thought it was a beautiful movie, regardless. So I know that's a bone of contention with Ron as he shoots daggers at me right now. But I was happy to see him win for sure. And he's got a distinct vision that we've said on here. It would have been great to see his take on The Hobbit, because it is something different that we hadn't seen before.
Big talent. Yeah. I always look forward to his next project. And after this one, who knows? Sometimes when guys get projects and built up and then they get delayed or taken off track, sometimes their heart's not in it. But I still hope he has the desire to make that Mountains of Badness project that he's been talking about, that H.P. Lovecraft story. He is such the guy to do H.P. Lovecraft, and hopefully he can get the financiers to back him for this, because he couldn't before, even with Tom Cruise behind him.
Hopefully one day.
And speaking of diversity and how nice it is that these more ethnic filmmakers are winning, you can't say anything about Mexico lately, with Alfonso Cuarón and Alejandro Inarritu winning too. That's 4 Mexican awards for Best Director in the last 10 years.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And then with Coco winning the animation, and then Best Song, it definitely had a Mexican flavor this year for sure.
Yeah, Del Toro. Yeah, so one ethnicity on the rise anyways in Hollywood.
Yeah.
Now it'll be another 100 years before an Asian wins Best Director, I think.
No, Ang Lee.
You're right. Yeah. Okay, good point.
And he's won twice. No African American has still won Best Director. Okay, should we talk about some of the other smaller awards? Paul, your documentary feature one, that Icarus one.
Yeah, I was really pleased to see it. It's hard to say that it's more deserving than the rest because the others look pretty interesting too, and it's the only one that I've seen. But it's thoroughly engrossing, and I loved it, and it's pretty relevant considering what transpires during the course of the documentary. I think I said it at the time where it's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time, and this film becomes something greater than what it was ever meant to be, and it was fantastic. I highly recommend it, so I was very happy to see it win.
It's a great thing of what can happen with documentaries as opposed to a fictional film, that the unexpected can happen like that, and I'm very intrigued to watch this film now.
Yeah, I saw Strong Island, which was nominated. I thought it was pretty good. That's on Netflix, if you want to check it out. And then one of the other ones is Faces, Places, filmed by Agnes Varda, who's one of the giants of the French Nouveau. So I'm interested in checking that one out, too. And that Abacus, Small Enough to Jail, is on Frontline. It's on PBS. I just taped it the other night. So if you're interested in that one, it's probably going to be airing this week.
Okay.
And then, Darren, for a short film.
Animated short.
Yeah, your Dear Basketball that you mentioned on the podcast won as well.
Yeah, like I said before, it's a very tender, heartfelt dedication to the sport that made him. And who would ever thought an athlete, can write so eloquently? He wrote it and directed by the wonderful Glenn Keane. And of course, John Williams wrote the score to it.
Right, that guy, yeah.
That guy,
Would you have watched it if John Williams didn't score it?
I'd have been interested, but I wouldn't have sought it out like I did, yeah.
And I'm glad you mentioned it because I hadn't heard of it. And I'm a huge sports fan, not necessarily a Kobe Bryant or even basketball fan, but anything to do with sport, I will watch. And I had a chance to catch up with it after the Oscars, and it was great. I thought it was very deserving. And yeah, you're right. In just the 4 minutes, it makes quite the impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a good win for those guys.
Mm-hmm. What did you guys think of every time they do one of these shows, I don't know why they expect it to be short. The Oscars always run long. They've done this before with gimmicks of trying to keep your speech short. But what did you guys think of the whole win a jet ski if you keep your speech short?
It provided a couple of laughs.
Pretty good laughs. Yeah. Helen Mirren was the big laugh for me when you can get
exactly.
Helen Mirren to be your jet ski model. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah, for sure.
But good luck with keeping people's speaches short. It's
I don't know why they schedule it for 3 hours every year. It always goes almost 4, sometimes even past 4.
I almost missed the ending again.
We have to PVR it because we can't start watching it until we get the kids to bed. And I had to record the Oscars and Mike and Molly and The Big Bang Theory and then CSI or whatever came on after just to make sure I'm getting everything. And it went into Big Bang Theory and Mike and Molly. I had to, just to catch everything. Yeah. Why are you not scheduling it for 4 hours?
Got me.
I don't understand it either. And it's funny because Melanie hasn't watched a lot of Oscar programs. And of course, now that I try to watch it every year, so she's not as well versed in it. But you could tell it was 7:45. And she's like, so do you think they're going to wrap up on time? I'm like, no, they've got at least 4 categories left, plus commercial breaks, plus acceptance speeches, or whatever else they're going to throw in the middle. I'm like, the earliest this is going to wrap up is 9:30, which is half hour past the time.
If you can't keep the costume designers and the makeup people, their speeches short, good luck with getting your best actor and best actress to keep it short, right? I mean, you're going to expect the speeches to probably get longer as the night goes, right? Because those are the bigger awards.
Exactly.
And you get the bigger names that have more of a platform to say what they want to say. And that's actually one thing that I actually liked a lot of the acceptance speeches this year too. I really liked Frances McDormand's. I thought that
there were
really
some good speeches, yeah, for sure. Last year there were some more moving speeches.
Yeah.
And this year there were some good speeches, but nothing that I really thought, I'm going to remember or take something away from that. And
not as political as I thought it would be.
No,
I liked the whole sentiment about trying to be accepting of more people, more fresh blood into the industry.
Yeah.
I can't remember who had the quote of, the doors open, kick it in. And was that Guillermo del Toro?
I think so, yeah. It might have been. And that was the overall tone of the evening, which was a nice sentiment for sure. But I don't know if it always justified the length of some of the speeches at the same time. Yeah.
I don't dispute that. But yeah, the general sentiment I liked.
For sure.
The big theme of the night for sure would be the Me Too and Time's Up movement. That was definitely hanging over the whole event. And some of the montages that they did, like there was that one moment with Annabella Sciorra and Ashley Judd and Salma Hayek when they came out, obviously victims of Harvey Weinstein. And that whole montage that they played, I thought was quite effective. Actually, all the montages I thought were pretty good.
Yeah,
even the ones introducing all the acting categories.
Yeah, whoever was doing the montages this year kept the clips fresh. And even, when the same films were being repeated, there was always something different to see.
And how each clip progressed to the next one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Must have taken a lot of work to go through those films and find all the appropriate lines that would match up like that.
Yeah, normally, sometimes some of those things can be a bit of a drag, but I thought all all of those worked.
I mentioned a couple of years ago how just there was about 4 or 5 montages in that one Oscar ceremony, and it was just the same clip from E.T. and Gone with the Wind and Casablanca.
The Chuck Workman clips, yeah.
Yeah, that we've seen a million times. And some of those were featured 3 times that evening. It was tough to get through. And I'm a fucking movie fan.
Right.
I love those classic clips, but Jesus.
There's so many other images that you can pick from The Wizard of Oz, more than 2.
Exactly, yeah.
Right.
Mix it up a little bit.
Right. So speaking of that montage, that one about movies, inspiring movies.
Yeah.
Wasn't it great to see Roger Ebert?
That was a very nice clip, yeah.
To include him on it? Wow.
Yeah, I was glad they put that in. Not a film clip, but man, was it appropriate.
And for him to use that famous line, the movies are a machine that generates empathy. Yeah, I love that line. So well captured.
That's why we go, right? I mean, that's the true essence of film.
Absolutely. As lighter moments go, one I did enjoy with that montage I was talking about was with Kimmel Nanjiani. I thought he had some pretty good laughs when he was talking about how Hollywood can be more diverse. How he says, I've been growing up my whole life watching movies about white guys and white guy problems and loving them, and they're my favorite movies. I think you guys can watch one movie about me.
Yeah.
I think that's fair.
Yeah,
now it's your turn.
That was a very good point, and maybe one of the best lines of the evening for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
And I still look forward. I have not seen The Big Sick, and I can't wait to see it.
Yeah, it's great. That could have been nominated for Best Picture, in my opinion, more than a few of the other ones now that I've caught up.
Yeah, it got a screenplay nomination, which seems very deserved, but have to see that and have to check it out.
Yeah. What about the big movie theater surprise?
I thought it played well enough, and I think at least they learned from last year's gag where maybe that went on a little too long and overstayed its welcome. At least this was short and sweet. I thought it was endearing, and it was kind of funny. I was thinking how out of place these people would look if they showed up in my theater, because I don't really have hero worship for a lot of celebrities, and I just thought how I'm sitting there in jeans and a t-shirt, and these people that are dressed to the nines show up, I'd be like, well, I'm a slob.
Yeah, I thought it was a nice moment. It's touching seeing the reactions of the people in the audience there. I can only imagine how I'd sit there in the theater react if Mark Hamill came in like that. I'd want to give him a hug. I mean, come on, it's Mark Hamill.
Gal Gadot. Yeah. I might not be able to stand for a minute, but
even
Paul. That is not in keeping with the sentiment of the evening.
Sorry.
The old popcorn box strike.
But just speaking of the time's up in the Me Too movements, and it was something that I was very aware of watching the whole ceremony. Of a lot of people had the pins on their lapel. Did you guys notice the pin that Jordan Peele had on his lapel?
I don't recall, no.
He had the antlers from Get Out.
Really?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, because Molly's like, why does he have antlers on his lapel? I'm like, that is brilliant. And then when I told her why, and I'm not going to spoil it for anybody that may not have seen the movie, but when I explained to her what it was from, she's like, oh, that's pretty awesome. I'm like, it's just that little bit of an in-joke.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
As far as standing ovations go, they always try to trot out some of the older Hollywood stars now and then. Are we down to the, I don't want to be mean, are we down to the point where Rita Moreno is one of the big classic Hollywood stars that we still have left? When I first started watching the show, Jimmy Stewart and Robert Mitchum and stuff were still handing out awards.
Exactly, yeah.
She is an Oscar winner. And
that was the point. You have an Oscar winner present that award, and it's in keeping with the tone of inclusiveness for Latin Americans and other, non-white Americans. Yeah, it was nice in that regard, but yeah, she's not Kirk Douglas or
hardly,
or Olivia de Havilland for that matter. Both of who are now still 101, I think.
Exactly. Steven Spielberg's thinking about remaking West Side Story as one of his next projects.
Yeah, I've heard that actually. Yeah, it's on his potential upcoming projects list. Yeah. I don't know if I care for that from Spielberg.
He must have a new take on it.
I feel that's the kind of Spielberg project that'll be passed along to another director. Although he's always wanted to do a musical, who knows?
Of course, every Oscar telecast has its mistakes, and in the memoriam section, there's always a few people that were missed. I don't know if you guys heard who they left out this time. Missing from the segment this year were Adam West, Glenn Campbell. I know he's mostly known for a singer, but he was in True Grit. Toby Hooper, Academy Award winner Dorothy Malone. I know she might not be that familiar, speaking of older stars and stuff, but if you're a big fan of film noir, she's fantastic. She's got her Best Supporting Actress for Written in the Wind, I think. Did you miss an Oscar winner?
Yeah. I mean, I've heard some people on Twitter complaining like the guy from MASH wasn't included. Well, come on. I mean, they can't include everybody in every field, but to miss some of the ones that they did, like Toby Hooper.
MASH is on TV. We're talking
exactly.
This is movie stuff.
Yeah.
Frank Vincent. Again, not a name that people might necessarily know right away, but he's part of one of the most famous movie scenes in all of history, and everybody knows his line.
Now go home and get your fucking shine box.
Yeah, Raging Bull, Casino. He's in so many Scorsese movies.
Yeah.
Anyways, they missed the boat on that one.
It wasn't that surprising that David Ogden Stiers wasn't in it just because he passed away the night before the Oscars, I think. I mean, as far as movie credits go, he was the voice of Cogsworth in Beauty and the Beast. That's probably, other than MASH...
not a stellar,
No.
a significant role in a film that people love, but it's not
the same
lengthy
level.
career in Hollywood.
No, for sure.
Yeah, I didn't even hear about that. Boy,
I can't believe you knew his name, Paul.
Well, I used to love him on MASH, and he actually played Martian Manhunter in like a 90s pilot of Justice League.
Oh, really?
terrible in it.
Well, I'm pretty sure everybody
all
was terrible in it. As bad as the Justice League we got this year.
Yeah. And another one that pissed me off, although she was included, was Jean Moreau was snuck in there right in the middle. Blink and you miss her. And she should have been, at least to me, one of the cappers of the night. And
Yeah,
to show some footage from one of her films.
I would have thought she would have got a clip from one of her films, but well, they did not. I knew you'd be mad as soon as I was like, Ron's going to be steaming.
Giant of French cinema. Give me a break. Anyways.
Not Hollywood enough for Hollywood, I guess.
And they always use the same excuse. Well, the song was only a certain amount of time. We couldn't sneak any for everybody in.
Yeah.
Isn't that the opposite thinking? You should come up with who should be included first, and you wrap the song around that, not the other way around.
I agree.
Anyways.
And it's my favorite moment of the evening, so I don't mind if that's one of the longer parts of the evening. So.
Everybody tunes in for that.
Yeah.
And I thought Eddie Vedder did a beautiful job with the song, too. I thought
Great
that
Tom
was
Petty
amazing.
song.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but at the Governor's Ball Award, did you guys hear that Frances McDormand's Oscar was stolen?
No.
For a brief period of time.
Really?
Some guy, she had left it on a table, and some guy went by and snagged it and was...
He was like live
braggadocious
Instagramming, taking pictures of himself.
Yeah.
He's been charged with felony grand theft. That's a serious charge for that.
He should be. If I had an Oscar, I wouldn't leave it out of my sight.
No, I mean, I would be gripping that thing like death all night. And he's apparently have you heard about him? He's a professional party crasher, like rich Hollywood party crasher. Apparently, he's been seen at dozens of these things, and I'd say his days there are over now.
That's for sure.
But he actually didn't crash the Governor's Ball. Somehow he got an invitation to it, which is amazing. This guy's a nobody, a literal nobody. I think he's got, I don't know, some profile. I don't know what social media it's on, but his profile lists his credentials as like he makes him sound like himself like he's a great DJ or a great musician.
But he's going around saying he won the award for music.
Yeah, exactly. And he would, if you look on his Instagram, apparently when he gets close enough to a star and he's able to ingratiate himself and get a picture with him, and then he'll caption, "Here's me and my old friend Beyonce." Like, what? This guy is a kook, but he's done himself no favors by stealing an Oscar.
I guess he tried to hightail it out of the party, and Wolfgang Puck, the cook, his photographer, was the one who tackled him down.
Oh, really?
Wow.
That's funny.
It always amazes me what some people will try to do, like, not to get too far off topic, but somebody stole Tom Brady's jersey after they won the Super Bowl last year. And you think, how far do you think you're going to get in this day and age where there's cameras in everybody's pocket, and to be stupid enough to Instagram it and basically leave a trail of breadcrumbs to yourself, even if you were to get out of the establishment? People are idiots.
It makes for a funny anecdote anyways.
Wasn't there an incident at least 10 years ago or so where a bunch of the Oscars went missing, and somebody
that
found a bunch of Oscars in a garbage can or something?
Yeah, that definitely rings a bell. I can't remember the details, but there was something like that happened for sure.
Right, it happened before the show that they had lost all the Oscars, and I remember the guy who found it, some guy named Willie or something, had found them in a dumpster, and he was invited to the Oscars and made a front row seat.
Yeah, and it's funny because in keeping with the anonymity of who's going to win the awards, there's no plate on any of the Oscars, and all the winners have to turn in their Oscars a couple days afterwards to get them plated properly. But in the couple days before that happens, like I said, I'd be gripping mine and never let it out of my sight. But lesson learned, I guess. Yeah,
it only takes a second for someone to grab the Oscar and say, "You don't look like Francis."
Everybody wants an Oscar, so you let it get out of your sight for too long, and someone's going to snag it.
An interesting nugget I gleaned from the red carpets, you brought it to mind when you said you'd never let an Oscar out of your grip. They had an interview with Mahershala Ali beforehand, and he said he doesn't even look at it. Like, it's in his house, but it's in a place where he does not ever see it. And if you went to his house, you would never see it because he never wants that to be the moment that defines his career and that, he feels like he's reached the pinnacle. That's cool. That's really cool. That
seems like a very humble guy.
Yeah. I have a great appreciation for him. And I love hearing things like that where people just don't take for granted that they've reached the top of the mountain, that they're always wanting more. So,
not that I'm in a position that I would ever win an Oscar, but I'd build a shrine on my front lawn and put it in there for the world to see.
Both your kids would be named Oscar.
That's right.
That's funny.
I make this observation every year, but does Meryl Streep's husband have to be such a pompous, arrogant-looking jackass? Doesn't crack a smile at any joke all night. Like, who is this guy?
I don't know, but he's never having fun.
No, he's not. He's not had fun in his life. He hasn't had a day of fun.
Actually, I thought it was funny, the whole shtick where the stars went to the movie theater and then they were showing the reverse angle of like the celebrities watching the movie theater people. And they had a shot of Meryl Streep. Obviously, she's front and center, and her husband next to her. And it looked like he was like going through their loot bag or their swag bag or whatever and just totally, disinterested in what else was going on.
Oh, they're showing the little people now. Oh, I'm not going to watch this.
What can I sell on Kijiji out of this bag?
Maybe he's one of those men who just can't stand only being referred to as Meryl Streep's husband.
Maybe.
I think I'd be quite honored to have that.
Yeah. Hello, Mr. Streep. Why, hello. I was just going to say, she's always so gracious because she's always kind of the butt of some jokes about being such a diva and whatever. And it happens every year about Meryl Streep, like with Jodie Foster and poking fun at her being such a pompous bitch. And clearly she doesn't come across as that.
No,
and she takes
for a few years in jail.
Yeah. Yeah. But she always takes it so graciously. And you can tell, like, even if her husband is a bit of a twat, she's very much.
Exactly. She's much the opposite of him. And her status in the industry and how beloved she is she takes it all, in stride and just accepts the jokes. She knows they're funny and she laughs at them. And she seems like a gracious person in that way, for sure.
Doesn't take herself too seriously at all.
Yeah. In the last few years, she's really not positioned herself, but been positioned as kind of a head figure of the industry for sure.
Yeah.
And
a measuring bar.
Absolutely. Kind of like in the old shows, it was always Jack Nicholson in that front row seat as kind of representing what Hollywood's all about and the best of Hollywood. And it's Meryl now.
It's Meryl now. Yeah. She's front and center every year for the last several years.
Well, and even during Frances McDormand's speech when she was pleading for all the women who had been nominated in every category to get up, I don't know if you guys heard, she looked right at Meryl Streep and said, if you do it, they will all do it. So she's clearly endeared herself to everybody in the industry. So
well deserved.
Well, absolutely.
Definitely.
For sure. Except, what did Trump call her last year? That
overrated. Did you hear his response to the low ratings this year?
No.
Well, Hollywood doesn't have any true stars anymore or something to that effect.
It's a different media landscape for sure. And like they said with the ratings numbers, this doesn't take into account anybody who's watching it on digital devices and streaming and all that. So nobody really knows anymore.
Yep.
So for next year, do you want Jimmy Kimmel back?
I want Chris Rock back.
Yeah. I was still, if out of all my dream hosts, I remember a few years ago, Eddie Murphy was talked about doing it. I think he'd be great.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love to see Ricky Gervais do it. I don't know if he would.
They'll never ask Ricky Gervais to the Academy. That would be fabulous if they did.
No open bar for sure. So why would he want to come?
Could a Tom Hanks pull it off? I mean, I know he's usually in the mix for a nomination, but could somebody of that stature pull it off?
If I was Tom Hanks, what would be the benefit, right?
I mean, he's a talented, entertaining guy and people would love watching him, but yeah, that's a good way of putting it. What would be the benefit for him for doing it?
Yeah, maybe earlier in his career. Yeah. Okay. Is there anything else that we want to talk about before we wrap things up?
I'd say that covers it.
I think that covered everything I was wanting to talk about.
Okay. Next time we'll be back to discuss Annihilation.
Or God forbid, Shape of Water.
Yeah, that's out on the 13th on Blu-ray, so I'll be checking that one out for sure. And you guys can
pass it around.
Right. Okay.
We'll all see it.
We'll have a viewing party.
Right. So until then, please subscribe and give us a rating on our iTunes, Apple Podcasts. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if interested, you can always comment and search for our past reviews at our website, whyweseemovies@libsyn.com. Thanks for listening out there, and take care.
Goodbye.
Ciao, ciao for now.
Late.
Hooray for Hollywood! You may be homely in your neighborhood.
Be an actor, see Mr. Factor, you make your kisser look good.
Go out and try your luck, you may be Donald Duck. Hooray for Hollywood!